Good morning, and I want to thank all of you for being here. It's, as I was just saying, you all look surprisingly well rested after that sine die party. You know, before you leave for the summer, I want to take a moment and review with you the significant accomplishments of this session. I want to start first by commending Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst and Speaker Strauss for their leadership during the session. You know as well as I do that Texans can be pretty opinionated. Just about every viewpoint is represented within our 24 million population with those 181 people who represent them. And despite the passionate and sometimes contentious debates, our legislature and those members of the legislature have passed legislation that I requested that will strengthen our economy, improve education, and make Texans safe. We all know that this session has taken place in the context of an unprecedented turmoil in the global marketplace, economic upheaval all across our country. And these factors were never far from anyone's mind as we worked with legislators on a number of key issues, ranging from higher education to private property rights, all under the welcome microscope of public scrutiny. As the dust settles from the 81st legislative session and legislators return to their districts, we can all be proud of the end result, and that is a plan that is good for Texas. For example, when the new business tax went into effect, we promised that we would revisit it in the years to come, make sure that it was achieving its purpose without causing unnecessary harm to Texas employers. In response to passionate feedback from Texas employers and a detailed assessment of the situation, we've more than tripled the exemption threshold, providing a tax cut for about 40,000 small businesses that fuel our state's economic engine. Legislators also affirmed my emphasis on investing in job creation with continued funding of the Texas Enterprise Fund, the Texas Emerging Technology Fund, and an updated incentive package for the film and video gaming industry. In addition, we fought off attempts to raise taxes, to loosen restrictions on frivolous lawsuits, and increase the regulatory burden borne by Texas employers. I am very pleased that Texans will have the chance to vote on a constitutional amendment to strengthen property protections, to ensure that government can't take a person's property for commercial uses, pushing back on that bad law behind the Kelo decision. In short, the 81st legislative session featured some tough choices that will keep our economy moving forward, and it is moving forward. When you look at the other states of this nation, you look and see what's happened to Texas. It's pretty hard to argue that fact. You know, as our state continues to draw new jobs, just like that 1,400 San Antonio positions that were recently announced by Medtronics, we know it's essential to keep improving education for the workforce of the future. I'm pleased that legislators renewed funding for the Texas High School Project. That supports math and science initiatives for low-income students through the state's 32 math and science academies and high schools on college campuses. We also increased funding for the nation's largest teacher merit pay program by more than $50 million, making that a total of $394 million that's available to award teachers who improve student achievement and teach on hard-to-staff campuses and subjects. On education, we increased financial aid for Texas Grant Program by $186.4 million. We increased grants for community college students by $10 million. That's a 40% increase in funding for these essential programs. At the same time, we made inroads in greater accountability in higher education by mandating transparency for educators, which enables students to be able to make informed choices about the best classes and the teachers for them so that they can advance their education. Adjustments to the 10% rule will empower educators to choose from a broader pool of students, allowing them to consider intangibles like leadership, which will keep even more strong students in Texas colleges and universities. It's probably bad news for the University of Oklahoma that we made an adjustment to our top 10%. While working to sustain our economic momentum and bolster education, we also funded our efforts to defend our southern border. A growing focus is on those transnational gangs that are using our southern border. We've invested, or by investing more than $100 million in the Texas border security, we will continue plugging the gap left by the federal government's ongoing failure to adequately police our border. We have proven the effectiveness of our approach along that border over the years by putting boots on the ground, disrupting and preventing crime along our border. This continued funding will enhance our effort to keep the pressure on those cross-border criminal elements. Although drug-related crime remains the dominant safety concern in the region, our citizens are also facing another looming threat, and that is catastrophic storms. Having seen the suffering of our citizens in the aftermath of storms like Hurricane Rita, Dolly, Gustav, Ike, I'm pleased the legislature was able to settle on a workable version of the Texas Windstorm Insurance Act to protect policyholders across the state from the next major storm. You know, by devoting an additional $62 million to the state's disaster contingency fund, they also gave our Division of Emergency Management the resources they need to act quickly on our citizens' behalf when, not if, the next major storm hits Texas. At the beginning of this session, I called upon the legislators to devote their early efforts to protecting some of the most vulnerable Texans in our care, the residents of our state schools. And I was pleased that one of the first bills to make its way out of the Senate addressed the shortcomings in our state school system, ensuring the residents are safer and better cared for. These all represent significant progress for our state. You know, in my estimation, the 81st legislative session will be remembered as a success for the people of the state of Texas. Now, I'll grant you that there's some business that was left unfinished yesterday, but that's not going to impact the business of state agencies. They will continue their daily service to the people of the state. And I want to ensure our citizens and the employees of those agencies that Texas will continue to build and maintain our roads, regulate the insurance industry, and provide essential services, while we work with those agency leaders in the coming days to choose the best of many options that are out in front of us. At the same time, we have more than 1,400 pieces of legislation to evaluate over the next 20 days. So the people's work continues. As I wrap this up, let me remind everyone of just a few things. Texans woke up this morning. They woke up this morning with a balanced budget, increased funding for education, and $9 billion in a rainy day fund that remains untouched. That is not the norm across the country. Second, we will still be one of the strongest economies in the nation, thanks to policies that we've implemented over the past several years and policies that have been implemented during this legislative session. Texas still leads the nation in exports and job creation and Fortune 500 companies, and has been the #1 relocation destination in the U.S. for the past 4 years. Our fiscally conservative approaches have made Texas strong, And the work done by the legislature this session will keep those principles in place, positively affecting the lives of everyday Texans. That's the real story of this session. And now it's time to keep moving Texas forward.